Oh man, Christmas in the 1980s. It was a whole different universe. If you were lucky enough to grow up in the decade of big hair, neon leg warmers, and endless cans of hairspray, you know exactly why we look back and wonder if things were just better before the world was taken over by smartphones. Most people tend to look back on the decade of their childhood as the most memorable one. So maybe I'm a little biased here, but let me tell you why the 80s had a specific kind of magic. It was a time when technology was starting to creep into our homes, but it hadn't yet killed the raw, tactile connection of being together. We didn't have social media to post our trees, we just had the actual vivid moments spent with family. Looking back at those grainier-than-life photos, you can almost smell the pine needles and the scent of a wood-burning fireplace. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. The glow of C9 bulbs and giant blow molds. First, let's talk about the decorations. Today, it seems like people are in such a rush. As soon as Halloween ends on October 31st, the Christmas lights are up by November 1st. Here in America, people completely skip over Thanksgiving. But back in the 80s, there was an unwritten rule. You didn't touch a single ornament until December 1st. And man, the style back then was a total visual explosion. While modern homes favor those tiny, classy white LEDs, the 80s were the era of the C9 bulbs. Bulbs so big and hot you felt like you could fry an egg on them. Every house had a few blow molds in the yard, those hollow plastic Santas or reindeer that glowed with a single light bulb inside. There was something so simple and happy about driving through the neighborhood and seeing those bright, multicolored strands and glowing plastic figures standing tall in the snow, rather than the cold, computer-programmed light shows we see today. The battle of the color-coded artificial tree. Artificial trees in the 80s had evolved a bit from the 70s, but putting them together was still an extreme test of patience. We had those trees where the trunk was a heavy metal pole with dozens of little holes, all color-coded. You had to find the branch with the green tip to fit into the green hole, and the red tip for the red hole. Mom was always the commanding officer, while Dad wrestled with the light strands. Remember the Series lights where if one bulb burned out, the entire strand went dark? Dad would sit there, a cigarette hanging from his lip, holding a bag of spare bulbs and testing every single socket like he was defusing a bomb. Every time he pressed a bulb in, the plastic would crack, making Mom's heart skip a beat for fear of her perfect tree being ruined. When the whole thing finally lit up, Dad would sigh, take a sip of beer, and proudly declare, "There, it's done." It was a triumph of labor. The Sears Wishbook fever and mall culture. In early November, the Sears Wishbook would arrive in the mail like a gift from heaven. It was the Bible for us kids. My brothers and I would lay flat on the living room floor with a Sharpie and start the hunt. We circled everything. Hot Wheels tracks, the original Transformers, Cabbage Patch Kids, and the legendary Nintendo Entertainment System, NES. We knew darn well we'd never get even a quarter of what we circled, but dreaming through those glossy pages was an essential part of the season. Beyond that, the shopping mall was the holy land of the 80s. That's where you went to see Santa, smell the cinnamon-scented air, and hear Wham! Or Mariah Carey blasting through the halls. The window displays were true works of art, inviting and sparking the imagination of every child in a way that modern online shopping websites can never replicate. The mall wasn't just a place to buy things, it was the festive heart of the community, the VCR era, and the ultimate holiday soundtrack. The 1980s was the golden age of the VCR. This was a total revolution. We didn't have to cry if we missed the airing of The Grinch or Charlie Brown on TV because Dad was ready with a stack of blank VHS tapes to record them. However, we still sat together to watch the live broadcast just to feel that connection with millions of other families. Meanwhile, music was the soul of the room. My parents would play the Carpenters or Dolly Parton on the record player. As for us kids, we'd hijack the cassette player to play Last Christmas by Wham! Or Do They Know It's Christmas? Over and over until the tape got thin, or Mom shouted, "Turn that off before I lose my mind." There was something so special about holding a physical cassette or an LP cover, reading the lyrics, a tactile experience that the digital era has sadly lost. You didn't just stream music, you owned it, you felt it, and sometimes you even had to use a pencil to wind the tape back in. Red-dyed pistachios and Grandma's denture incident. The 80s living room was a snack paradise. We had Chex Mix that Mom whipped up, and most importantly, the bowl of pistachios, which back then were often dyed a bright neon red. After eating them, your lips and fingers looked like you'd been in a horror movie. That was the evidence that I had eaten everyone's share. Then there was the bowl of mixed nuts that required a heavy metal nutcracker and sheer brute force to open. I remember one year I saved up to buy Grandma a box of very hard chocolate toffee. She was so happy, picked the biggest piece and popped it in. When I asked if it was good, I heard a loud clack and pop. And then out came her dentures, landing right in her lap with the toffee stuck in the middle. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off my chair while Mom stood behind her, giving me the mean mug and doing the neck slicing motion telling me to shut up. It turns out Grandma stuck to soft ribbon candy for every Christmas after that. Polaroid cameras and the itchy outfits. Christmas was the time to dress in our fancy 80s best. There was no way you were allowed to wear pajama pants or Crocs to the dinner table. I was usually forced into an itchy red turtleneck sweater Grandma knitted, while my brother wore a denim jacket or a blazer with shoulder pads. We captured these moments with Polaroid or disc cameras. The external flash cubes would go off with a pop, smelling slightly burnt and leaving black spots in your eyes for the next 10 minutes. But the most magical part was the whole family huddling around a white piece of paper as the image slowly materialized. It wasn't instant like a smartphone. You had to wait, you had to shake the photo, and you waited in suspense to see if anyone's eyes were closed. That wait made every photo precious. Each shot cost money, so you couldn't just hit delete and take 100 more. Those blurry, overflashed photos are the ones we cherish most today. The BMX bike, the key to freedom. The greatest gift I ever received in the 80s was a neon blue BMX bike. Back then, a bike wasn't just a toy, it was your wings. When you got one on Christmas morning, you felt like you could go anywhere. From the empty dirt lots behind the neighborhood to a friend's house miles away. We spent our winter breaks racing through the streets, building wooden ramps and pretending we were the kids from E.T. Our parents worked incredibly hard to provide those moments. Looking back, that house with the mustard yellow carpet, wood-paneled walls, and gaudy wallpaper might look strange to kids today, but to us, it was where magic lived. Christmas wasn't about the stress of buying. It was about the effort of making. It was about creating memories that 40 years later we can still sit down and smile about.
That bike was
Those memories are the only gifts that truly last a lifetime. The legendary three-way popcorn tin. Oh man, if you lived in America during the 1980s, nothing signaled that Christmas has arrived, quite like the appearance of those giant decorative popcorn tins in the living room. You know exactly the ones I'm talking about. The tins featuring classic scenes of winter robins perched on pine branches or nostalgic snowy landscapes. Inside, the tin was always divided into 3 glorious sections: butter, bright orange cheddar cheese, and sweet, crunchy caramel. The real civil war in my family always revolved around that caramel section. It was always the first to go. We would try to be careful not to let the cheese dust migrate into the caramel, but by the end of the night, your fingers were inevitably stained that signature neon orange. The best part was that after the popcorn was long gone, that tin lived on forever. It would either become Mom's sewing kit sanctuary or the place where my brothers and I stashed our Lego bricks. Even years later, when you popped the lid, you could still catch a faint, ghostly whiff of butter and salt from Christmases past. It was a staple of the 80s holiday landscape that felt like a treasure chest for us kids. The giant shoulder-mounted camcorder. By the mid-80s, a new technological beast began to make its appearance on Christmas mornings. The shoulder-mounted VHS camcorder. My dad looked like a full-blown frontline war correspondent, balancing that heavy rectangular machine on his shoulder just to capture us unwrapping our gifts. Attached to the top was always a detachable floodlight that was so hot and so blindingly bright, it felt like being interrogated by the police. Every time Dad flipped the switch, the living room turned as bright as high noon, and we'd all be squinting like we were staring directly into the sun. "Just act natural. Don't look at the camera," Dad would shout, while that light made it impossible to see anything but a white blur. Those tapes, when played back on the TV later, always had that flickering tracking line at the bottom and a constant mechanical hum. But that shaky, grainy, overlit footage captured the chaotic happiness of our family in a way that the ultra-crisp, stabilized 4K iPhone videos of today just can't replicate. It was raw, it was awkward, and it was perfectly us. The iconic drugstore fragrance gift sets. Finally, we have to talk about the smell of an 80s Christmas. I'm not just talking about pine needles or gingerbread. I'm talking about those fragrance gift sets you could buy in a hurry at the local drugstore. If you were a man, you were almost guaranteed to receive a Stetson or Old Spice set with the promise of making you a rugged gentleman. For the ladies, it was all about Jean Naté or that famous Charlie perfume. These sets were always packaged in the most eye-catching way, with clear plastic windows and glittery cardboard backings that made them look much more expensive than they were. I vividly remember opening mine, usually a set of shaving cream and aftershave, even though I didn't have a single whisker on my face yet. By the end of Christmas dinner, the living room would be a thick, aromatic cloud of everyone's new scents clashing together. It was a sensory overload of the highest order, but it was filled with love. Today, people want niche, expensive perfumes, but for me, one whiff of Stetson is a powerful time machine that takes me straight back to those cozy, crowded holiday nights. What is your favorite Christmas memory? Is there a toy or a hilarious disaster from the 80s you'll never forget? I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to join me on more time travel journeys in future videos. Wishing you all a very Merry Christmas.